Okay, now we are going to go for chapter 2, but this is example of a picture showing one of the person in this picture is me. So let's go for chapter 2. So for book 1, Law of Salimi, chapter 2 is titled Stupid IQ Test. Okay, let's start. When I was young, I was very curious about everything. In fact, this statement still holds true until today. I am very curious about everything. By the way, before I proceed with this chapter, can you guess which one am I in the picture above in the last chapter? Let me put another picture of me where I'm alone in the picture. In this picture, I am pretty small. I am not absolutely sure at what age I was back then. Honestly, I do not remember. Can you see the resemblance when I am older in the previous picture? Can you guess correctly which one I am in the previous picture above? Anyway, let's get back to the original statement meant for this chapter, which is regarding being inquisitive and curious about everything in life. I guess my first memory about anything would be a blur image of faces in front of me. Logically speaking, it might be possible to assume that such memory would come when I was very little, where people would talk to me and I possibly would not understand the words. It would be possible to suggest that my first memory would come from the time when I was still a baby. However, there is no proof for such claims because I might be very helpless if I was still a baby. Still, regarding the picture above, I do not have any memory of it. One could argue that I might be having the ability to retain very selective memory. As I grew up, I began to realize that I am capable to retain certain selective memory for a very long time, especially if it is related to a specific emotion that I felt. It's not a perfect memory like individual with photographic memory. It is simply selective, emotionally charged memories. For example, I can retain the memory when I was in kindergarten, which was known as Tarika Amal, where my teacher confiscated my brother's toy car, which I borrowed without his permission. I guess that particular memory was charged with guilt emotion. My understanding about how my memory works would be stronger. The emotion would be the stronger the emotion, the stronger my memory can be retained. Unfortunately, I only realized this when I was much older in my life, which will be explored in the future chapters. The good thing about having selective memories is that you can control certain things and how you wish to memorize specific events. The bad thing about it is the fact that some emotions might not be within your control, such as fear, anger, melancholy, and so forth. In fact, if anyone would ask me whether having emotionally charged selective memory is good or not, my answers would be it is both a blessing and a curse. Essentially, it has both good and bad side to having this ability. In the early stage of my life, I had always thought that everyone else possessed the exact same ability that I had. However, later in life, I discovered that it was not true. Everyone is unique to each of their own. Their experience, ability, and knowledge are unique based on their own experience in life. As I do not truly comprehend my selective memory ability, I started to learn on how to utilize them effectively. Essentially, based on my own experience, while having the ability to permanently record certain memory can be extremely useful, I also realized that having to permanently record every memory in my life can be daunting and horrifying. Imagine every horror and fearful experience in your life being seared permanently into your memory. Having to watch that memory again and again for every day in your life can be mentally scarring for anyone. In my case, at first I despised having this ability. If you read or heard stories about people with permanent memory, you always hear the great story about how useful perfect memory could be. On the other hand, the same horrifying memory can haunt an individual and scar them mentally for life. It might be possible to theorize that this concept might explain how certain individuals fear certain specific animals or things in life. For example, people who fear spiders might have a scarring mental experience in their life that are so horrifying that it might render them extremely fearful when facing even a harmless spider. Now imagine how dangerous when perfect memory individual can affect their mental state when a horrifying event was experienced and permanently seared into his or her memory. I reckon this could explain how phobias could begin to creep in the minds of people. In my life, I too have experienced such events which caused me to fear certain things in my life, even if it is considered as harmless or trivial to others. Despite that, strong or perfect memory can be utilized for good too, specifically when learning new things in life. For example, anything that I felt important when I heard about it might be permanently recorded in my memory. This can be an amazing feat to have in life. In another example, I have met a person with perfect memory that could recall every single words from every book that the person had read in his life. Me, I'm not that good. My memory can be retained only when emotions can be charged into it. Honestly, you cannot simply put any emotions at any time that you wished for it. At least to me, it was virtually impossible. Fortunately, passion to learn is a great emotion to latch to events that I had experienced in order to trigger my selective memory ability. If you, the reader, read that statement carefully, you realize that one, it is not working like a video recorder where I can record anything at any time that I wish. And two, passion for learning must be a real emotion that I felt and it cannot be falsely created. A fake emotion does not trigger retained memory. In other words, I cannot fully control what I could remember, and which one that I wished to remember. To make the story much shorter, until today, I had been able to retain only interesting memories in my mind, as well as numerous mentally scarring memories. As a result, I could trigger my selective memory to access certain information from my past experience with ease. Does this ability considered as a good thing or a bad thing, as far as perception of society is concerned? What does society call such ability? Is there a specific name for it? From what I had discovered in my life, certain members of society would call such ability as being a genius. Genius? Me? A genius? No way. If you consider another element of perfect memory that can cause you to tremble in fear, such event had been depicted in stories and documentaries where a person is suffering a certain degree or specific type of autism. I'm an autistic? I hope not. No matter how much I deny any of the label, the actual events of selective memory is part of my ability in my life. I call the ability as emotionally charged selective memory. Others might call it as genius or artistic. Honestly, I do not care. I do not wish to be called artistic. I would also rather not to be called a genius too. I would simply wish to be me. Just a simple human being who loves learning. A very curious person. It is my own nature of being inquisitive. I wish to learn about everything. At this specific juncture of events, I was curious to find out whether I am being categorized as a genius or an autistic by our society. Thus, I started to learn about the stupid IQ test that was held by Mensa Group. I wish I could post the result of the test here in this story, but I cannot provide any actual evidence. However, I was extremely excited about it. As a result, I had perfect selective memory of the test that I took via online IQ test questions. Frankly speaking, I feel that the test was stupid. I felt so because of the bias that existed in the questions favoring certain specific field of knowledge, certain language, and certain measurement of the intelligence. I felt that it does not reflect the true intelligence of an individual by simply taking such tests. Nonetheless, I was very curious to find out where I would be rated on the scale of the IQ test. Does society, or at least the IQ test society, perceive me as a stupid or an intelligence person based on their slightly biased test? Being the curious person that I am, I took the test just for the fun of it. Want to guess how much did I score? I got 138 points. As I can remember, I took this test when I was a very young adult at the age of 24 or so. In comparison to the present day, I felt very strongly how stupid I was back then. After taking the test, I realized the formula of computation that produced my 138 points based on the questions asked. I feel that I can perform better if I took another test. So, being curious to see if my theory about how they made the calculation of the IQ test was correct, I took another IQ test. The questions were different from the first test, but this time I was doing my best to beat my earlier score. As a result, I got 148 points. I don't really care about the result, but I'm just happy because curiosity was satiated. If you're curious whether my results are good or bad, try looking via the internet on the IQ test measurement. For those who are truly lazy to see about the IQ point scale, I've attached a graph depicting the simple or rather standard scale here. So as you can see from here, this is the old, or at that time, the scale that I used. As I said before, I don't really care about my result. I was just curious about it. Essentially, based on my scale, my IQ point was pretty good. I'm not a super genius or anything, but simply not labeled as a mentally retarded individual. I'm grateful to Allah the Merciful. Still, I do not really agree with the IQ test measurement because of the imperfect nature of these questions. In addition, certain intelligence cannot simply be measured by answering questions. For example, if a person is unable to see, the person will have a different perception of life. It does not mean that the person is stupid, it is just means that the person is unable to see. In fact, the concept of genius or high intelligence itself is something that I cannot truly accept. How fast your brain works does not truly show how intelligent you are, at least not from the perspective of Islam. So to fulfill my curiosity, I look up on the definition of genius from the perspective of Islam or based on the notion of scholars of Islam. I've discovered that genius is defined as a person who is able to help others as much as he or she possibly can. More benefit that the person is able to provide to the masses public means the more genius such person is. This is the view of one Muslim scholar that I had read. Honestly, I prefer this definition of genius. After several contemplation and serious thoughts, I realized that I might not be a genius after all. Hence, I began to strengthen my resolve towards becoming a genius based on this scholar's definition. I felt that I should follow this definition because it is in line with the teachings of Islam. It is fulfilling Islam as a way of life. It is accordance to the true essence and spirit of Islam, Tesi. In Islam, your level of intelligence does not matter. The color of your skin, eyes or hair does not matter. Your height does not matter. Your physical attributes does not matter. The only things that matter in the sight of Allah the All-Knowing is your faith or taqwa to Allah the Almighty. This is in line with what I heard when I was 17 years of age from a great scholar. There are only two kinds of people on this earth. One who follows the teaching of Islam and one who does not. I absolutely agree with that statement. With that, it ends the second chapter of this book. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you joining me for the next chapter, chapter 3. Thank you very much.